If psychology and pop culture had a baby, they'd call it Shrink Tank.
A new paper reveals more intelligent people are quicker to learn and unlearn.
90% chance that there's some weird animal out there. Yeah.
Stern's been doing this forever and far more extreme.
From Nashville and Charlotte, this is the Shrink Tank Podcast. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dave Verhagen in Nashville, and we've got a great show for you. Our trending topic today is March Madness and the psychology of LeBron James. It's a basketball episode. We'll get to that in our second segment. But first, let's meet our Charlotte panel. Dr. Emma Kate Wright is here. Hello, Emma Kate.
Hi, Dave.
Are you a basketball fan, in particular March Madness fan?
So I am a college basketball fan. However, it was always to spite my brother. So whoever he was cheering for with basketball, I was always cheering against.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That fits your personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Just
what
as there
there
is
is.
He liked Duke. So, I always cheered for UNC.
Makes perfect sense. Dr. Frank Gaskell's also here. And Frank, I know you are a March Madness fan. When in your life did you start getting interested in college basketball?
At birth. My first dog's name was Tar Heel. I was 3, and I've never looked back since. I've always been obsessed with Carolina basketball.
And was that your...
Speaking of which, this is a sad week because when I would listen to Carolina basketball, I would turn the TV down and listen to Woody Durham. And Woody Durham passed away recently, so it's very sad.
I know. I actually used to work at the same radio station with Woody Durham. He was in the building. We never were on the same show together, but his sidekick, Mick Mixon, was my sports guy on my show.
And is now an announcer for the Panthers. Hey,
right.
Mick Mixon.
Hi, everybody. Mick Mixon here. Yep. Good man, though. Good egg. And Jonathan Hederley's here. He's our certified Asian who rounds out the panel. And Jonathan, are you a March Madness fan?
I am a big basketball fan, and I'm curious, am I the only one that of the regulars here that played basketball, like on teams in high school and stuff, or did any of you play basketball?
I did a church league.
Church league? All right, playing for Jesus.
I was the singular worst basketball player in my entire
That's not
grade.
Surprising.
I know it's not, but I will tell you a particular event that makes the point. I was playing in a PE game. It wasn't even intramural or church league or anything. It was just PE. And I passed the ball to the ref twice in the game.
And your teammates cursed you and said, I hope your bones become so brittle that when you tuck in a shirt or eat soup, something breaks off.
And it came true.
And it came true. I broke my tail. One of the 3 times I broke my tailbone was playing basketball. Actually, 2 of the 3 times. Never mind. 2 of the 3 times I broke my tailbone was playing the basketball.
And he can't talk about the 3rd time. Let's just put it that way.
Boy.
It's classified. It's on the dark web.
Oh, no.
Well, each week, Jonathan trolls the internet, and he finds a great story of psychology in the news for our first segment that we call
Being Human.
So what can you learn about a person from just a glimpse of their social media profile pic? Well, according to science, way more than you imagine. A huge body of research shows that humans have a weird ability to assess each other's personalities from only the quickest glance. Here's what researchers discovered when they compared a scientific analysis of thousands of participants' personalities to their social media profile pictures. Those that were more conscientious people used pictures that were more natural, colorful, and bright. Those that scored on high on openness, if the face takes up more of the frame than usual, it's a good sign of openness. For those that are extroverts, no surprise, they were often shown surrounded by others, used colorful photos, and smiled broadly.
Or
Those
had
that
no
scored
shirt on.
high, exactly. Those that scored high on neuroticism, a simple photo with little color is a sign of high neuroticism. They were more likely to show a blank expression or even be hiding their face. And those that scored high on agreeableness post relatively poor pictures of themselves, but they were probably smiling and the pictures were always bright and lively. So the question that we have, Emma Kate, is do you think that you can assess a person's personality simply by their profile pic? And what is your profile pic?
Well, it's funny you asked me that because I definitely, as soon as I was prepping for this, I said, oh, what is my profile picture? What does this look like? And I think you can, because I definitely form strong first impressions based on someone's profile picture. If someone's there, in a selfie doing a pouty duck face, I'm like, okay, I don't like you. And so I definitely form those impressions. And so when I went to look at mine, I'm surrounded by a bunch of people and it's bright and colorful. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm extroverted. This makes sense.
I need to make a pouty duck face profile picture now.
Okay. Well, I already blocked your feed, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no,
right?
you didn't, because you make comments, so whatever. You're an idiot.
Okay. Right. No, but so
Good comeback,
Frank's
Frank.
picture, Frank's picture is probably something like Lord Vader or like Darth Vader, whatever it is.
Or my children.
No, I'm
Stacks
pretty
of money.
sure
Which you don't
you've had
have.
Kim Kardashian as a profile picture before.
Is it just a white canvas?
Right. Yeah, because you love Kim K. She's your fave. So those are my thoughts.
Hey, Jonathan, what did you say about neuroticism? Which, by the way, neuroticism is people that are more prone to being anxious, depressed, angry, kind of negative emotion. What was the thing that predicted that?
A simple photo with very little color, and they're more likely to show a blank expression or even be hiding their face.
Yeah, that seems really creepy.
A simple photo with a blank expression.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
looking
that
at I'm trying to
You're
look
looking
at
at
Frank's. Yeah.
I'm looking at it. It has
You
his
guys are looking
license
at my
plate.
Facebook?
It has his license plate.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's the banner, doofus, not profile
No, that's
picture.
part of it though, because that's what you can
So
see.
part of his
my
profile is he doesn't have any picture of
He has
himself.
no picture of himself, so that means
I
he hates
do
himself.
too. No.
right?
No, your kids.
Right?
Hey, Miss McKay.
Yeah.
You were my profile picture for like months.
Oh, well,
What?
that speaks
When
When
well.
we were in Washington,
That's-
D.C., and
that's
you were
more
laughing,
healthy.
and I
Okay.
was telling a joke.
That's true.
So eat it.
That's true. No, there was a funny group photo there.
Well,
Okay.
Frank, I mean, I don't know about your profile pic, but you're putting some kind of questionable or concerning posts up there as well. Are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Hitterly. Thanks.
Yeah?
Appreciate you hijacking my page.
So one of Frank's more recent posts says, ever look at your body and think, okay, well, yeah. So
For those in the audience, I occasionally leave my laptop open out of stupidity, and Hedderly makes new little what are they called? What
A
the
post?
a post? Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Frank's
Frank's a
brain
little
just
upset
melted
right
right
now.
there.
Yeah,
Little
let's
upset.
move along.
it smelled
Ready
like
to-
money burning.
Change
Oh
the
my
topic.
gosh.
Because he has a vanity license too.
That's right.
It's not
that
a
costs
vanity
extra
plate.
money.
It's a funny plate. It's not a
on his
vanity plate.
Mercedes.
It's not vanity because it's a
vanity plate,
Mercedes.
yeah.
No,
It's
if
his
a
Mercedes
vanity plate is
license
if I
plate.
put my name on
Yeah.
it. I didn't put my name on it. I
Lord
put
Vader.
a Star Wars character. It's a nerd plate. It's not vanity. You guys are stupid.
Because nerds can't be vain.
Oh,
We should call
man.
you Darth Vader.
Well, at least it's not
Vader.
Talk Doc.
Yep.
At least not. So we didn't answer the question. Do you guys think that this is credible? I mean, do you think that there's any credibility to your profile picture predicts your personality, at least in terms of those 5 factors?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah,
I think it nailed it.
I think there's probably a strong unconscious pattern that somebody that's really extroverted is going to post something with high energy or other people, and somebody neurotic is probably going to show something where they're obscuring their face or they're more blank.
Yeah. Or holding a Hickory Farm sausage or something like that. That'd be weird.
Something like
or,
that.
Or coming up with that scenario out of your head. That'd be weird.
Very weird. All right, let's move along and let's talk about our trending topic today, which is March Madness. Starts this month, next week, and the psychology of LeBron James. And let's bring in our guest panelist, Tarik Sloussi, everybody. Let's give it up.
Thank you very much.
Now, Tarik is a licensed professional counselor, and he sees young adults and teenagers and does an awesome job. And Tarik, before we get into this, tell me the weirdest ways that people pronounce your name, because I'm like Verhagen, Van Hagen, Van Halen. What do you get? For
Verhagen,
Tarik
Verhagen
Sloussi.
Das. I get Verhagen Das. No.
For your name?
So I've actually got a funny story for you. When I was in high school, I played basketball, and there were 4 of us, right? And there was a Lebanese kid named Tarik. That spelled his name Tarek. My name is Tarik, Tarik. There was an African-American kid named Tarik, Tariq.
What?
And then another kid named Tyreek.
So phonetically, everything's covered.
There you go.
All we know is
That's ridiculous.
Tarik did not go to the high school that Frank went to with those four names.
Oh, you don't know that. You do not know that. Kinston, North Carolina contributes more NBA players as a little town than any other city.
I don't believe that.
No, it's true. Dave, you saw that
Shackelford.
article, didn't you?
No, but Charles Shackelford.
Stackhouse, Charlie
Stackhouse.
McNary,
That's
Wes.
true. Yep. Yeah.
There was a guy last year, and they all make it to the NBA.
That's pretty
Well,
impressive.
what's your
Yeah.
excuse?
I played tennis.
And by played, you mean watched.
Right.
Ball boy.
So Tarik, I know the answer to this question. Jonathan asked in our first segment, who here has played basketball besides him? You played basketball. When did you start playing?
So I started playing around 8 years old, I'd say, and played. I grew up in Orlando, so we had the junior Magics is what we had there growing up. So I played in the junior Magics all the way till middle school, and then played on the middle school team, high school team, and even walked on for a year in college.
Man, you're the real deal.
I don't know about
And
all that.
You played football. And what was your best sport? What were you best at?
I'd say probably football. I played cornerback and wide receiver, but corner was probably my best position.
Yeah,
So
that's weird.
football.
Me too.
I bet.
Yeah. Just like Frank. Just yet another way that you and Frank are almost the same person.
So similar.
Yep.
So many ways.
So March Madness, we're going to talk about LeBron in a minute, but March Madness is a big thing. And it feels like in the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years, it went from being kind of like it's got its own following to it is a cultural phenomenon. Like it's the thing that everybody talks about. Every office, every place. Have you seen that in the last? Do you feel like that's the trend? Is that it went from being something that people that were interested talk about to now it's something that everybody everywhere talks about?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think it has to do with the bracketology and everyone getting engaged in that aspect, and the fantasy sports I think has helped as well. So I've grew up in the sports world, so it's always been something we paid attention to. But I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, there's definitely been an uptick in interest from people from a diverse background, so to say.
So you already began to answer this question, Tarik, but is it because people are more participating with the brackets, with betting, that kind? Is that why it's taken off?
Yeah, I believe that's at the core of it. I think just they're making it fun for people that aren't just attached to a team. Again, people that have a hometown team that's in the fight, they're excited. But now there's all these ways you can win money if you last long enough, and then you do pools within offices, and so it just makes it more exciting.
Do you guys have other theories about why that is? Is that the psychology of it, and why March Madness has taken off, because people can now participate and bet and be top of their pool and all that kind of stuff, or is it something else?
I think it's that, but I also think it's just coverage. Because when I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, and I was the kid in charge of taking the TV to school so we could watch the ACC tournament.
Because you're rich.
Wow.
No, because he had to buy friends. Come
Oh
on.
my God.
Get it right.
I'm sorry, continue. About
Okay,
the television.
Anywho,
TV to work.
the big rivalry back then was NC State and Carolina because Duke sucked. They still suck, but they really sucked back then. And
What's
that
Carolina
was
ranked
really
right now?
what we. I'm sorry, Tarik. I have the mic
What's
right
Carolina
now. And what
ranked compared to Duke?
what we always talked about was the ACC tournament. And I really didn't pay a lot of attention until March Madness, maybe until. I mean, I remember in '82 when Carolina won, and I saw that game, but I don't remember paying attention to all the other teams. And with the internet and all this coverage, I'm able to learn a whole lot more about these other teams that I really couldn't learn when I was younger.
Well, and I think uh, I agree with both what Tarik and Frank has said, that it's become very accessible to the average American, but also the coverage has increased. And one of the things that's happened with that, if you think across sports, in the past, we really celebrated dynasties. And there's been a couple things that have happened with college basketball, and this speaks to LeBron, but at one point you had some of the best high school or college age players foregoing college and immediately going to the NBA. And now you have the one and done where high school players have to play in college 1 year. That really created, I think, a little bit more parity in some of the dynasties that we were accustomed to across all types of sports. We started to root more for the underdog. And now, I mean, that's really what March Madness is about, is you want to watch a 15 seed take out a number 2 seed. You want to see a mid-major take out like an ACC powerhouse. And with the amount of coverage now, you can watch those games and see it happening live. And then the other thing with coverage is social media and the web is you can also watch. Anybody can watch like the highlights or the game-winning shot, and then you just jump on the bandwagon.
And also, at least for me with social media, I follow a lot of the Carolina players on Twitter or Instagram, and it's that other phenomenon. I feel like, well, I kind of know a little bit about this guy. And even on a personal level, you've been watching these players over the years, and then they leave and they either go to the NBA, which I'm less interested in, or they become coaches. So this year, UNC Greensboro is going to the dance, and its head coach played for Carolina, 2002 or 3, I think. So it's just exciting stories is what I really love.
So what I'm gathering there, Frank, is you know these players personally. Would you say that you're one of the boosters?
I am not a booster. I have not given a dime to Chapel Hill. They have enough money.
No, he's a stalker. He follows them.
It's a little different, but I agree with what you guys are saying. And Jonathan made this point that you want to see a 2 take out a 15 or a low seed take out another high seed, but you also, not only do you want to see that, but you want to be the guy or the girl that pick that. Like that's part of the psychology of it, is you want to be the person that predicted the upset. And that's what the emotional hook is as well, too, I think. Now, Tarik, you've written. Go ahead,
Dave. I wanted to let you know something interesting about March Madness.
Oh, here we go.
And this is a fact. Vasectomies go up 50% just before March Madness. I want you to think about that. Why would that be, Dave? Why would that be?
I know that vasectomies go up 50% after people listen to our podcast, but I have another theory about that. Tell us, Frank. Tell us, you font of knowledge.
I think it's an excuse to sit on the couch for 4 days straight and just not move. That's my theory.
Watch
and
basketball
I'm sticking to
and ice your balls. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with Heatherly. It's about that underdog mindset. Like
I'm like, what?
No, it is. I'm ignoring some of the icing.
That's
on
a
the
great
balls
5-minute
here.
callback.
No, but I'm going. No, I'm trying to change the subject.
did
I don't want
Emma
to hear you guys
Kate-
talk about your balls.
Was she in a coma for like
She's
3 minutes
napping.
there?
I think I had a mini stroke. I'm not sure. I don't know if I had a mini stroke or not. But no, I remember when College of Charleston beat UNC, and that was a really big deal, and it did not relate to vasectomies.
The sex maze. What?
You're getting old. It's okay.
I'll
did
be
you just
glad when
say?
I'll be glad when this podcast is edited just right, where
Right.
all the parts that we talk about
All of the things.
Are cut out.
are cut out.
Snip, snip.
Well, moving on. We were going to talk about the psychology of LeBron James. And for those of you who read shrinktank.com, and all of you should, you probably recognize Tarik's name because he's one of our main sports writers. And he writes about the psychology of different athletic events and different athletes. And you've written a piece on the psychology of LeBron James. I really don't know this. I don't know about his background. So start there. Tell us a little bit about this guy's background and how that formed him into the man that he is now.
Yeah, so LeBron was born in Akron, Ohio. I think people know that. But he was born to Gloria James, his mother, who was only 16 years old when she had him. So he grew up in extreme poverty. There's the article that I wrote, The Psychology of LeBron James, has a video clip in there that shows his mother and him being interviewed as adults after he's made it to the NBA and talking about the poverty in which they grew up, and they're driving around and showing people where they were. And mom talks about even being homeless at times, and he even ended up living with one of his coaches. That's how bad it got. Mom couldn't support him financially, so he ended up living with one of his coaches for an extended period of time. So that's his upbringing. He came up from a rough childhood in the sense of poverty. It was impoverished.
So how do you feel like that influenced him? What have you read or what do you know of him in terms of how that's influenced his development as a person?
I think it's helped him with resilience, being able to kind of bounce back from setbacks. He grew up in an environment that was really difficult, and instead of just laying down, he really tried to find a way out, and found that through sports. Now, there is an issue in poverty and in lower socioeconomic statuses where individuals only look to sports or entertainment to get out of the cycle of poverty, but it worked for him, so to say. I'd also say that how it's affected him as an adult, he's developed a foundation that's focused on helping kids like himself from Akron, Ohio, to help them get into college and pay full scholarships, and has given millions of dollars. So I think it's impacted him from a philanthropic endeavor as well.
So what else do you know about him psychologically? I don't want you to give away all the article, but what are some of the things that you have kind of pieced together in terms of a psychological picture or profile of this guy?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to point out is the growth mindset that he has. He's a goal-oriented individual, and for those of you that are not familiar with growth mindset, there's a book called Mindset that was written by Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist and researcher at Stanford, and it's been around for decades. And it highlights these two mindsets that we tend to have as individuals: a growth mindset, which is focused on effort and the belief that effort can determine outcome and that effort can alter your trajectory, so to say. And then there's the fixed mindset, which is the reality is what it is. So if I grow up in this neighborhood, I'm just meant to be nothing, and I'm just going to do what other people in this environment do. So I think that's one thing about LeBron James's psychology is he's growth minded, he's growth oriented, and he tries to find ways in which he can continue to progress instead of just being content.
You know, one of the interesting things about LeBron James is if you think about some of the greatest athletes of all time, and let's use Tom Brady or Michael Jordan as examples, they were not pegged to be all-time greats during their childhood or even during college in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of people would argue that Michael Jordan underperformed, but I wouldn't argue that. I think that college he learned a lot of the intangibles of basketball. But LeBron James, around age 13 or 14, was labeled he is going to be the greatest basketball player of all time. Right. And so there's a different degree. And I think back to even our episode where we talked about Justin Timberlake. Very early on, you could tell this kid is extremely talented and he's getting that message from other people, but that's a lot to live up to. So just even from Michael Jordan, when we think about resiliency and grit, like being cut from his high school basketball team and the disappointments of losing early on his last year in Chapel Hill as a junior, and then not being chosen number one. LeBron James was labeled by Sports Illustrated the king.
The king, the chosen
one.
Yep.
At age 17. And so there is something to say about whatever degree of either arrogance that he may have, but also that's pressure. Like there are a lot of people that they've made a career out of waiting and wanting LeBron James to fail.
No, there's actually an interesting article I read in some of my research that was written on Psychology Today. It was a 3-part series on LeBron James and narcissism and how we've actually developed the narcissism in him as opposed to him just being naturally narcissistic. Talk about, labeling him the chosen one and putting him on Sports Illustrated as a 17-year-old and all those factors that, the king, giving him all these names or monikers that have developed him into the narcissistic individual that he is to some extent.
And I remember how big of a deal it was when he was moving, and it was, the decision, that special that happened. And I just kept thinking to myself, who does this? And I was like, well, probably somebody who's really into themselves. And so that narcissistic piece fits. But I do feel like he uses, like, he's very philanthropic and he gives back to his community. And even then, like, he won the championships with Miami in the Heat, but he still felt like he owed it to the Cavaliers to go back to Ohio, his hometown, to try to win one. So there are aspects of him that I think that narcissism is helpful. I don't know.
I can't stand LeBron James. I just can't stand him. And I'll tell you why he's never going to be the all-time world great. Because you put him back in the 80s with Jordan and Bird.
This sounds like an
Ewing
angry old man.
And
Get off my
Barkley,
lawn.
the mailman, Akeem. Forget it. Magic Johnson. Oh my gosh. Michael Jordan did it with the greats of history. LeBron is not doing it with the greats. And he's like, I think it's crap that he moved teams. He's like, oh, I'm going to go to this team to win. I'm going to go to this team to win. No, Jordan stayed with one team.
Well, I think
And he won. He won with one team. LeBron
Get off
can't
my
get it
property.
done. LeBron's no leader. LeBron's a big freaking baby.
I
That's all
wonder
I
if
have
this
to
is connected
say.
to Carolina and your
look at
loyalty
Frank
to
and his
Carolina.
huge hands.
Or
Huge hands.
Space Jam 2 coming out.
Yeah,
He's
that's a
upset about
good
that.
move,
Well-
LeBron. Yeah, do Space Jams too. You're a genius.
I think LeBron is actually the epitome of the modern athlete. I mean, I would argue that LeBron and Steph Curry have changed basketball more than any other player since Michael, and then before Michael, it was Magic. Like, he's a transcendent player that has changed the game. He's a freak athlete, but I think he's a sign of the modern athlete because, I mean, Tarik talked about growing up impoverished, single mom, right? It was a single
Yep,
mother.
single mother.
You sort of see LeBron's career arc where he has had issues with he wants control of his legacy. He wants control of where he plays, who coaches him. I mean, he had to grow up, I think, very early on. And so I think he probably at times has had difficulty like submitting to male authority figures that you know what's best for me. I mean, this guy has been very successful since early on. And so going to Miami, that would be unheard of during the era of the 70s and 80s because legacy was about staying with one franchise and building it up. But he is the modern athlete. They personal branding, what is in it for me? And so I think he's more of a byproduct of our times than he's inherently like narcissistic. Like, I think he definitely has traits, but who's not if you're the greatest, one of the greatest of all time?
So let me ask Tarik that question directly. Do you think, from your opinion, do you think that this is the greatest basketball player of all time? LeBron James would, in a fair poll, be the top guy.
I don't think he is at the moment. I think he has the potential to be because his career is not cemented. It's not over. He still has time to continue to pad his legacy, so to say. So I think I personally think that when it's all said and done, he will be. But I don't think we can make that argument today. I think the comparisons to Michael Jordan is unfair at this moment because he still has at least 5 more years in the tank, I believe.
I would agree
with that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think the potential is there. I will tell you an interesting anecdote. I had a friend that went to the NBA All-Star game this year in Los Angeles, and of course, all the great players right now are there, but also all the historically great players are there. There's Magic. All of them are there. Dr. J,
Dr. J,
and Wilt. I don't know. Is Wilt still
Bill
alive?
Russell. Yeah, no, they were. Yeah, they were all.
Dave's showing his basketball acumen here.
Yeah, but as Frank was
anyway.
talking, that's what I was going to speak to. Also, was those guys that you talk about that came before LeBron, they all respect him. LeBron, if you watch the All-Star game, he went to the sideline. Courtside was Julius Erving, was Magic Johnson, was Bill Russell. All of them stand up and shake his hand as he walks in. So they respect him and they respect what he's done. But
They absolutely do. But here's what my friend said is when they introduced the players, the crowd was, appropriately wild and crazy. And when they introduced the legends, everyone, applauded. But the person that brought the house down, that when they called his name, there was like a audible like exclamation and then like crazy cheers was Michael Jordan. Like
Right.
That's
right.
By far, the reaction to Jordan outpaced anybody else in the house, which I think is telling, is pretty telling.
I'm glad I'm glad you agree with me, David. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Well, I don't fully agree with you, Frank, but I do think that's.
Well,
I don't
but
agree
Mike-
with your dissing of LeBron James, but I do agree with Jordan.
My guess is like when Jordan was at his peak and at an all-star game, if Julius Erving or Moses Malone was named, my guess is they would get a pretty large, substantial cheer too, because that's the byproduct of eras. It's like Frank is cemented in his era and time, and it's difficult. It's fun, and it's a fun intellectual exercise to try to say if you pit these two people together, like who comes out on top. I think both have both inherent strengths and limitations. I mean, Michael Jordan was an assassin. His mental toughness, I think, exceeds LeBron's. I think LeBron is a very sensitive, thin-skinned person. When you think about an all-time great, I think Michael Jordan was a clutch, like end-of-game assassin, but I also think he was a killer defender. But LeBron is also a freak of nature. And the fact that LeBron has played in the NBA since coming out of high school, he's never really had a substantial injury. So you think all this time he's been able, like Jordan, his second season, missed most of the season to an injury. Like he has stayed healthy and one of the top two players pretty much since his second or third season in the NBA.
And I'd say that factors into why LeBron is who he is, because he's always growth oriented. He doesn't believe he's great. He never feels like he's actually made it. Therefore, he's always working for the next goal. It's, for example, this year, and I highlight this in my article as well, he's developed a new goal. His goal, after he's attained all these other goals, is to shoot 80% from the free throw line, because his shooting has always been attacked because he's not a great shooter. So his goal for this season is to shoot 80%. Now, some would say that's menial compared to all the other things like winning championships and things of that sort. But he is legacy oriented, as Hedderly identified earlier. So I'd say that as well.
That's great stuff. Well, we want people to read your article on shrinktank.com. And thanks, Tarik, for joining us. And we're going to wrap this all up with a final segment that we call Doctor's Orders. These are things that we're personally enjoying in pop culture. And Frank, do you have something for us?
I do. It's a book called In the Slick of the Cricket. I've read it twice now, and it is the true story of the shark that Jaws was based on. It was a massive rogue shark that swam up into the canals in Long Island and was eating dogs and attacking people. And there was a guy that got in a boat called the Cricket to go out and hunt down this shark. And it's very similar to the movie Jaws.
Awesome. Say the title again.
In the Slick of the Cricket.
In the Slick of the Cricket. All right, Emma Kate.
I discovered a new series on Netflix called Big Mouth. And all I'm going to say is that it is a highly inappropriate animated adult cartoon. Not like sexual, but it's all about puberty, which is weird. And it's kind of equivalent to Rick and Morty, but it's hilarious. And you should check it out.
It's hilarious.
Jonathan.
By the time this podcast goes up, our engineer and producer Sean Beck and I will have seen Fleet Foxes in concert. We're going tonight, and that has really required me to revisit their last album, 2017's Crack Up. It is, if you're a fan of Fleet Foxes, I think this is one of their more complex albums. It's very dense. It's not traditional kind of song structure, but I've really forced myself to dig deeper into it, and there's a lot to digest and appreciate. But Fleet Fox is doing a little bit of a tour in the next few months, so if you get the chance, try to see them in concert. Dave, I know they're playing in Nashville, I think at the end of May maybe, but Fleet Fox is live, and their latest album, Crack Up, give it a shout out, give it a look.
I have two recommendations real quick. One is a book that I've recommended here before, but I can't recommend it highly enough, and it's called The Righteous Mind. It's by Jonathan Haidt. He's a professor. He talks about moral psychology and why people who are essentially good people land so strongly on different sides of the political and religious spectrums and cannot see the other person's perspective. And he gives, better than any book I've ever read, the psychology of that. It's essential reading, The Righteous Mind. Also, the animated film that won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, Coco, is out on Blu-ray and DVD. That is essential viewing if you love animated films. I love that movie. And so definitely check out Coco. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Shrink Tank podcast. We hope you'll check out shrinktank.com for great articles and videos, including Tarik Sloussi's Psychology of LeBron James. That's up now on shrinktank.com. You'll also find links to our Doctor's Orders products that we just recommended. You can order them right through there. And you can follow us on Twitter at @shrink_tank and like us on Facebook. And for questions or comments, we want you to write us at feedback@shrinktank.com. We'll use your questions on the podcast as well. Our producer and music composer is Sean Beck. For Emma Kate Wright, Jonathan Hederley, and Frank Gaskell in Charlotte, I'm Dave Verhagen in Nashville. Tell all your friends about us and make it a great week.
ShrinkTank.com